So in the background, I'm just going to have some clips playing of the different setups I tested. I tested pretty much everything I could think of that could even possibly be decent at Wyverns. On this alt in particular, I have spent over 100 hours in total at Wyverns, so the tests I've done have been pretty lengthy to try and get the most accurate information, but I will be rounding the numbers just to not get overly detailed. Only three main setups I found were really viable, and they are fortunately, unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, pretty standard. So I'll go over those first and then move on to a few that worked in one way but failed in another, making them not worth using over one of the standard gear setups. And one last disclaimer before we begin, all of these rates were, like I mentioned, gathered on my alt account, which is used while playing my main. I'm sure with 100% focus you could get higher than the number of kills per hour I'm going to mention, but the point that one gear setup is better than another wouldn't change, depending on just the focus you put into it. They would still be pretty, or go up equally, no matter how much focus you put into them. I'll start by answering one of the biggest questions I set out to find, which is whether or not the Ancient Wyvern shield is better than the DFS while meleeing Wyverns. If you don't know, the Ancient Wyvern shield has negative melee bonuses, but has very high defense bonuses and stops the Wyvern's ability to freeze you, which is one of the biggest time losses in killing Wyverns and is also just quite annoying. So, in my testing across all of the different gear setups, I found the Ancient Wyvern shield gains at least kills per hour over the Dragon Fire shield, which is not huge, but if you have the funds available, it is better. I will note, however, the Ancient Wyvern shield requires 25,000 Numelites, costing roughly 900k to 1 mil to charge fully, and they are not refunded when discharging the shield, and it must be discharged in order to trade it. So only buy this if you plan to use it for quite a while, as just on the cost of Numelites, it's going to take you about 25 hours with those extra 2 kills an hour to make up for the cost of the Numelites. So moving into the actual gear setups, I'm going to start with the third one on my list, which is full obsidian with either a DFS or an Ancient Wyvern shield. On this setup I only managed a little under 43 kills an hour with the DFS and a little over 44 an hour with the Ancient Wyvern shield. Because of Obsidian's extremely low defense bonuses, the Wyverns are just able to hit quite frequently, which caused a lot of trips to end early, but I would still recommend this over a setup like Full Torags. But if the choice was between Full Torags and a DFS, or Obsidian with an elemental shield for whatever reason, definitely go with the Torags and DFS, as you would be completely shredded in the Obsidian without a DFS or an Ancient Wyvern shield. Number 2 on the list was Justicire. Due to its extreme defense stats and pretty OP passive effect, Wyverns will still hit you but not accurately, and when they do hit you, for very little damage, allowing trips to be completed very easily and possibly with even less than a normal full inventory of food, lobsters, whatever you use. Due to spending more time killing the Wyverns and less time banking, even though Justicire lacks the melee stats, it did boost the kills per hour to 46 with a DFS, and between 48 and 49 kills an hour with the Ancient Wyvern shield. So definitely a step up from the Obsidian. And then the number one setup was Bandos. Yes, the old classic setup still does the best. Now, I will say Bandos with the DFS only beat Justicire by a tiny margin. I managed 50 kills an hour on average. But if you have the funds for Justicire and an Ancient Wyvern shield, then you would be able to obviously buy the best setup anyways, which is Bandos with the Ancient Wyvern shield, which I did manage to get 53 kills an hour with so quite a step up there. So that one, like I said, is the best just overall setup. I did try a few other setups. Some of them actually got more kills per hour, but obviously fell short in other areas. So starting off, I will say that if you're on a lower budget, Torags with an elemental shield is definitely fine, or ranged would be my recommendations if you have a lower budget, and they still work perfectly fine, and it's a good way to obviously make money and then get the better setups. But on the first one, or first setup I tried, that's a little bit out there. It did end up getting more kills, or boosting the kills per hour by a bit, but was extremely costly, and that was a Serp Helm with a Toxic Trident switch. So if you didn't know, the Serp Helm had its passive changed, so now when used with either a Toxic Blowpipe, Toxic Trident, or Staff of the Dead, it has a 100% chance on successful hit to venom the monster, as long as the monster is not invulnerable to venom. Now obviously we can't use a Toxic Blowpipe, as the Wyvern would just turn around and hit you for 5 million damage. And the Staff of the Dead only venoms them on successful hit with a spell, so you do actually have to cast some sort of spell. You can't just walk up and bash them with the staff. So that one is pretty much out as well. So the Toxic Trident is what I went with. Unfortunately, I'm still trying to find a cost-effective use for this combination. It's kind of a weird combination. I didn't really understand it when it came out, because none of these weapons, the Toxic Blowpipe, Toxic Trident, or the Staff of the Dead, really work well with the Serpentine Helm. You don't really want to wear a melee helm like that when you're ranging or maging, so it's kind of a weird change, but there's a few places that it works at, just are not the greatest. And it definitely didn't work at Wyverns. Again, though, it did boost the kills per hour slightly. The magic defense on Wyverns is actually pretty high, so I had to use a switch to Ancestral, or just a mage switch, to be able to hit often enough to even come close to making it worth it, which did obviously cut down, or require me to pay more attention, which cut down the AFK factor of this, which is half of the goal, since again this is an alt and I'm trying to play efficiently on my main account. Plus the cost per hour on this, just using a few spells and the scales in the helm and then switching back to melee setup, it was still 300k or more an hour just for those few spells and scales, so not worth it at all. And that also pretty much sums up the last setup that I'll go over. I did use quite a few more, but this is the last one I'll cover, as it's the only one that again even came close to being worth it, or being faster, which is the Serpentine Helm, and the Tentacle Whip. With this setup, there's a 50% chance to venom your enemy, and the Tentacle Whip does have a much lower cost of use per charge, so in theory it sounds better, but unfortunately the helm, the scales you use in the helm is still very costly, and since it is only a 50% chance to venom, you either have to wait for a venom hit splat to show up, or just hope that after 2 or 3 hits you have venomed the monster, and then just based off of guessing that you've venomed it, switching back to a regular whip and a different helmet, which again required much more attention be paid, and again that makes it less AFK. And again, just off of the Tentacle Whip cost and the helm scales cost, when using it and waiting for a venom hit splat to show up, it still cost almost 300k per hour. It did not boost the kills per hour enough to overcome that. So in conclusion, use bandos with an ancient wyvern shield if you want the absolute best setup. Below that is the DFS with bandos, and then obviously you can move down from there. The Justiciar is really good if you want to AFK extremely hard. I may even use this setup in the future. Bandos is still pretty AFK. You just get hit a little bit more frequently, but since you're faster at actually killing the wyvern, that's what causes you to get more kills per hour and still be able to have full trips without running out of food before filling your inventory. So I hope this helped. Any questions or comments, please leave them. I will reply to all of them. Thanks for watching. Bye.